Hey guys, welcome to another miniature painting video. This one is for Rebecca from Black Rose Wars by Ludus Magnus Studios. She was actually pretty fun to paint. So I said a lot about the miniature quality and what I thought about them as a painter, and you're going to see some of that in the commentary in the following video. But just to encapsulate, overall, I actually enjoy her much more painted than non-painted, and she was actually really fun to do. The reason I painted her first is because a patron of mine actually asked about it and asked if I was going to be painting it, so I figured why not paint one for them. So if you would like to just be able to talk to me more and make suggestions like that, maybe get a cool sticker like the dozen or so people that are getting one of these. This ends March 1st, by the way. That's your last day to be able to get one of these. Check out the Patreon link below. Otherwise, if you don't, that's fine too. I just enjoy you being here and watching. If you do enjoy the video, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Enjoy the painting. Alright, starting things out, we're going to be using basic skin tone. As I've said many times before, this is my go-to skin tone, unless there's like very tanned or something like that, just because I can bring it up or through highlights, or I can darken it and shade it down, and it's just a good base color. This arm is kind of terrible, as you can see when it comes to the mold. It's one of the big problems there, but her fingers are actually fairly nice, and so you just kind of, it's just two arms, hands, and then her face, and a little bit of her neck, and that's it. So moving on from that, we're going to have just a basic flesh wash. This is from Army Painter, and the Seraphim Sepia would be the equivalent for Citadel. It's more of an orange brown than a red brown, to kind of just give it some shadow. We're going to highlight it later. Next up, we get the basic skin tone back out, and this is just going to be the highlights. Now, at this point, it's heavily watered down, so I did water it down to where there was not a whole lot. And the key to highlighting is very light brush strokes. You're just barely touching the part that you want to highlight. If you press too hard, watered down or not, it's just going to get splotchy. You just kind of want to lightly kind of feather it on almost. That's going to be on the arms, on the hands, essentially as if she was lit from the kind of the 45 degrees from the front is kind of how I typically highlight it. Though, you know, I highlight the back too. It's not like I'm doing some crazy shadow thing or anything like that. Alright, now I have Dragon Red out for the lips. I thought about doing a darker, like a black red that I use later. However, I didn't, because I didn't think I would be able to pull it off too well. Dark kind of lipstick is kind of hard to do, and on that skin it would be not fun to fix. Then I also got some matte black that's going to be for her hair. Again, be very careful here. You're using black right next to highlighted and all completely finished skin, so if you mess it up, it's harder to fix after you've already washed it and highlighted it. Because you can't just put the base color back on. It doesn't work that way. You're going to have to do all three steps, and I mean, that's kind of hard. Now, this is a little blurry, and I apologize for that. Essentially, I'm putting the matte black in her eye, and then what I'm going to do is, and I didn't even get this filmed very well, but get some ivory and cover up almost all of it, and then the matte black back out for the pupils. The black first with the ivory in there kind of creates a little bit of kind of a makeup look to it, because you get that little line of black around her eyes, and it helps add some depth too. Black Gray from Vallejo was a fantastic color to highlight black. It's my go-to favorite highlight for that. And, you know, obviously you can bring it up even more with the Uniform Gray if you wanted to. However, the more you highlight it up like that, it ends up looking more like gray hair and less like black hair. So you want to kind of be a little light when it comes to highlighting black hair, just because you don't want it to be gray hair. This is exciting. This is Alien Purple. It's not something I've used a whole lot. Alien Purple is a great purple, however, as you can see, like a lot of Army Painter paints, it just, the pigment isn't super high in it, even after shaking with a ball bearing in there. It's just, it kind of lackluster. So I had to do 2 coats, kind of rough. However, this is not any intricate detail work here, so I'm just doing a base coat over her entire outer cape here. Now, there are 2 issues with the, well, I guess there's 1 issue with the cape here, and that's its separation between the outer cape that you're seeing me paint now and the middle cape. that's going to be a different color, there's no hard line. The mold is just kind of soft and it kind of bends into it, so you have to kind of paint on that line, which is no fun, and I actively hate painting on lines. But just that inside portion there, you kind of see where I stopped, and again, it's not even super good from there, and that's the better side. The left side is even worse. And then of course the middle cloth and then the inner cloth also have a very soft line that's kind of just gonna have to paint on there. She also has this little scarf thing and a tassel looking bit on either side that is also gonna be purple. What I don't show here and paint later is she also has some cloth on her staff. Okay, now I have the black gray out again, so ideally you would just have the black gray out once, so learn from my mistakes, paint smarter than me. This is for her middle cloth, and then her like chest piece here is also kind of this black gray looking kind of I almost put it as like a dark green, but not only did I feel like that would kind of clash, but I think the black gray helps her hair not stand out so much. If she was full of kind of more brighter colors, that black hair would really pop, and that's not the focus I want on the miniature. So again, when you're painting here, just be careful because like I said, there's no solid crease, no solid line between this and the next one. So you can see here how I kind of painted a line that I chose to where to paint that to, but you're just kind of winging it. The mini sculpt here is not going to help you detail wise, and it's not the only issue here. However, it wasn't too bad. I mean, you draw a line and then you move on, and then you know, you make some comments about it while recording a video, perhaps. But other than that, you're good to go. Down here is very difficult just because it's so tight, right close to there. But we're going to straight to highlighting up. It's kind of pointless to put like a Nuln Oil wash or a black wash on this black gray. Won't show up very well. I mean, you can, but then you'd have to bring back the base coat too, so you'd have to kind of tie it all up. So this is Mechanica Standard Gray, and this is again edge highlight. Notice I'm just kind of rubbing the side of my brush against the edge, and that's typically pretty good. There are times where you're going to want to do the tip, like right here where I can't get the side of my brush in there. You're just going to have to kind of freehand it. Just work slowly, make, you know, nice sweeping motions. You should be pretty good. One of the nice things about highlighting this is it does add a bit of definition, which kind of helps. Cantor Blue is next. I love Cantor Blue. It's a fantastic blue, and this is going to be two parts. It's going to be these little feathers she has here, kind of on her shoulder, and then also the inner cloth where her knee is. And again, it's going to be, as you can see right there on the back, that bottom part there, you see all three layers there. So again, just take your time and paint this all blue. Next up, we have Gray Blue, and this I'm stippling on. So if you look at her concept art, she has this design on this, it's not even quite a design, it's almost like the texture the cloth is made of on this inner cloth. This stippling works really, really good for any kind of design you're trying to do like that. I purposely have a brush that's just been mangled that I don't care about, it's really cheap, and I just dab it in there and then kind of use it almost like a sponge. You can use a sponge too. What I like about the brush is it tends to have some bigger parts, and it gives a little bit. Now, to bring it all together, both the inner and outer, and just to tone this down, I'm using Druchii Violet. It's the kind of purple shade from Citadel. And as you can see, it just tones down that highlight and kind of darkens up that blue to kind of mesh it more together so it kind of fits more. Anytime you have a highlight that you feel is too drastic, or too different, a lot of times throwing a colored wash on there will tie them two together, and I think it worked out fantastic here, especially once it dries and it's not as shiny. And again, it kind of goes into here too. Now I'm being very lackluster here because I want it to kind of, again, gravity will do the work for you. So a lot of times you'd paint sideways and let it pool, but I'm wanting to cover everything, and it's going to kind of go down these creases on its own, as you can see, so I'm not too worried about it. I didn't have any problems with pooling. If you ever do, you just kind of want to dab it with a dry brush to have the brush soak it up, because you don't want a thick layer of it there, and it won't look good and it'll be super shiny. But as you can see, just go straight down the creases there. You're going to want to get all of it. You're going to have to be more careful, like on the tassel, on the hood, on the scarf around her neck. You know, just be careful. Next up, again, once you put a wash on it, to highlight it up, it's always best to do the base color first. So I'm getting Alien Purple back out and painting in just the ridges. Now, there won't be a whole lot of difference here, just because the wash inherently goes into the creases, so there's more there, and the Druchii Violet and Alien Purple were fairly close in color. However, the paint isn't quite as glossy and shiny as a wash. And so when you put the highlight on, first of all, it is a subtle difference in color, but also just because it'll blend better paint on paint versus paint on wash. If I were to skip this step and go straight to the highlight, it would look a bit more rough. Next up, I'm just adding some white to the Alien Purple. This is not white, this is just highlighted Alien Purple. So I'm taking the same Alien Purple, adding a little bit of white to it, watering it down even more, so it's going to look most drastic when I first paint it on, and then as it dries, it's not going to be as shiny and not as bright. And then just painting in those highlights. Now, this is going to look a little rough. I'm going to play with it a little bit off camera, but honestly not that much. The miniature, especially from a distance and all that, looks really good with these kind of popped out highlights. You're not going to see individual brushstrokes, but again, I do blend it out a bit with some regular Alien Purple, just kind of feather it in, so it's super, you know, watered down, so it's not it's not like drastic or anything like that. But this is pretty much what I do. I'm going to do two rounds of this. So after this, I'm going to actually add some more white in there and do it over again. Now, when adding more white, you're not going to want to paint the entire area. And if you notice here, I'm only painting in 50 to 80% of what I painted the last time. So it kind of gradually gets brighter. Again, you don't want to do extreme highlights like that unless you're doing like a light reflection or something like that on some glass or something. You're just going to want to blend it in to where in the middle of the previous highlight is this even higher highlight. Next up, I have Drakenhof Nightshade. It's a blue wash, or blue shade from Citadel, and this is just to cover just the feathers, darken up those recesses before I do a highlight. Speaking of highlights, here's Viking Blue. Again, just getting the edges here. I realize in the art, they're curved and like the middle part is reflecting off the light. Not only are these not curved, but they're not enough detail or big enough to really be able to do that. So just get the edges and it'll help them pop out a little bit. Now we have Werewolf Fur, and this is a huge issue here. there's just so little fine detail on these pieces, especially like the top and side of that. See how there's no real hard lines? It's just all kind of soft and meshed together, which is kind of unfortunate. So you're going to paint the sack and the 2 belts that she has. The belts don't really have any definition on them. They're just straps. You're going to paint these armbands here. This armband is terrible. There's a big chunk of it missing out. You can see right there in the middle of it, which obviously is going to show. And then the rings around it are actually, there's chunks missing out of that too. I don't know if when it was pulled out of the mold it didn't work, or the mold wasn't made well, or who knows, the steel mold that they put these in before they pour the plastic in. But either way, that whole arm is kind of jacked up. It looks fine from a distance, and me painting it obviously makes it look better. But obviously I would have preferred an actual ring all the way around and not just chunks of it missing out when painting, especially because when I put a wash on it, it's going to show up a lot. Kind of unfortunate for us painters here. Next up, Screaming Skull. This is for all the bones, so her bone staff and the 4 skulls that she has. Again, not a lot of detail here. The skulls actually fold into each other. They don't. So the middle part is this kind of a shared blob of, I mean, I'm painting it bone, but it almost looks like a 2-headed person that was connected at the skull, because they don't actually end here. And then, of course, the one on the side, as I said during the unboxing when I showed you this, it only has 1 eye and half of a mouth. The other half is completely smooth. It's whatever here. The staff I liked the staff, except there's a bit at the top of the head that I think is just some extra plastic. By the looks of it, I didn't trim it off because it's a lot. I didn't want to sculpt anything, but you kind of see it poking out on the right hand side that we're looking at it right now. The skull's left hand side when I flip it over. In fact, you can even see a little bit of it on this side as well. I don't know what it is. Alright, now we have some Shining Silver. This is just for this little bit of blade. Again, the blade goes all the way in because this portion right here is single cast. So it's, you know, there's no space in between there. It just keeps going down there. And then Agrax Earthshade. I always throw the Agrax Earthshade on the Screaming Skull. I think it looks great once highlighted up. It's my go-to bone skull color, unless I'm doing like a bleached white kind of version too. But I'm also throwing it on all that, the armbands and stuff like that. You see how it just pulls into that chunk missing out there. That's unfortunate, but again, I'm no sculptor. I'm not gonna green stuff it, and it's not really worth it. But you know, throwing this wash on will help as much as we can, just pop out what details there are. And like on this big skull guy, I think it looks great in those ribs. Looks awesome. Now here you can really see that part on the top of the head. Like, I had no idea what that is. Okay, so now we have the Screaming Skull back out, and this is again just to highlight it up, and kind of get those ridges looking good. You want to put special effort on the face part of the skull. Really pop out those deep eye sockets, and then of course the ribs, because they look awesome. Alright, next we have Greedy Gold out. This is for all the details. Mainly the pommel and hilt of this dagger thing she has here. A little bit on her necklace, a little bit on some of the like books that she has there. There's some I'm not going to show because I forgot to do it at first, but she has a little medallion on her forehead, and then these little things in the back of her hood that also need to go on. Additionally, she has these like arm bracelet things. Again, they're broken up. That's not a solid cylinder for me to paint, which is it is what it is. It just makes it a little bit more difficult, but take your time and be careful, and it should end up pretty okay. Now we have Uniform Gray out. This is going to be my base coat for the bricks here. I'm going to be doing this on all of the miniatures here, so they all look like they're kind of in the same area, or, you know, the same floor. And this is going to look great once it's all washed and everything. There's going to be parts where I'm painting like the roses here that get a little bit blurry just because of the focus on the camera, trying to focus on the miniature, not the base down below. I do apologize for that, but we'll get through just fine. Next up we have Black Red. She has a necklace, a second necklace of beads that I'm using Black Red. It's a fantastic color. It doesn't show up like a super huge amount on her, and I actually ended up putting a little bit of Dragon Red highlights just on the ends of it. I didn't film it, I just did it afterwards because I felt it pop them out a little bit more, and it does. It looks great. Speaking of Dragon Red, let's go ahead and paint the roses. Again, afterwards, when I was looking at it, they're really small. They're not super deeply detailed, but I did throw some Caribou Crimson, which is the red wash of Citadel, on them afterwards. Feel free to do that if you wish. I didn't add any additional highlights afterwards, though. I just let it kind of be on there. Next up, we have Nuln Oil, and this is going to really, lay it on thick because you're going to want it to seep into those cracks. As you can see there, it looks awesome when it's on there. We're going to highlight it up a little bit to really make them pop. They're going to look great. It's awesome. Just be careful, especially on the back side of her underneath there. It's really hard to do. Now, we're almost done here. Moldy Clothes is a really, really solid bright green that looks good up for these vines, but it's not like... It's not too yellow. A lot of times bright greens, I think, end up being a little yellow, and this is still a solid green. I like it. Now again, you can throw a green wash on there too, if you so desire. It won't do as much as the roses because there's less detail. Now for those highlights, we have Ash Gray. I'm just doing kind of the back corner of it. Again, like the light is shining onto it and just lighting kind of that end there. You could do the opposite end, I suppose, too. I don't typically know how light works. I just paint whatever I think looks good. And I think it looks good. I think that looks awesome, so I'm happy with it. Now, for the rim, I'm doing Necromancer's Cloak. Again, Army Painter paint, so a lot of times there's some issues when it comes to coverage. This is no exception, so I'm having to do 2 coats of it. However, it's a great kind of... it's just a really good gray. I want to say there's even a little bit of brown in there, but I don't like doing black. It makes it pop too much and separate too much, but dark gray really just kind of mutes the whole thing and lets the miniature stand for itself. And it looks great against the, red and green kind of backdrop there. And that's it. This is the finished miniature. This is how she looks like when she's done. Guys, I hope you enjoyed that one. I actually enjoyed painting this. Again, I complain a little bit about the details, but it's because I want it better. Like, I had to paint belt buckles on there because there's none. It's just like a band. But I did really enjoy it. I loved the colors. I really love that inner cloak and the design there. Working with purple's fun. You don't do it enough, right? How often are you painting this much purple on a miniature? So a lot of fun there, and I'm excited to paint the rest of them. Let me know in the comments below what you would like me to paint next. Is it Black Rose Wars? Is it maybe some other game? Let me know. Additionally, if you liked this video or found it enjoyable or useful in any way, be sure to press like. It helps the video out a lot and lets me know that what I'm doing is worthwhile. If you haven't subscribed yet and you want more board game content, more miniature content, more Kickstarter content, I'm painting a lot of miniatures, doing a lot of reviews and unboxings and Kickstarter detail videos, and especially one for kind of each month, and then kind of themed ones for seasons. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.